Welcome to Beyond Our Focus. I'm Stefan, this is Amanda, and this is Let's Palaver About the Gunslinger, Chapter 4, The Slow Mutants. So, as always, there will be tons of spoilers. I don't always say that. And this is Monday, October 8th. Because I'll never remember to do that unless I look at my fancy notes off screen. So, this is the fourth chapter, or fourth one. You should catch up if you haven't so far. Jumping in at this point, this is really spoiling a lot in this particular portion of the book. Yes,
it is. And not only that, but even though it is kind of spoiling it a bit, the chapters are pretty short. You can catch up pretty fast, probably read it.
This is a small book.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only read 200 pages at this point, and there's only like 30 pages left. So the next one's going to be might be a short episode, but I think we're going to do like a chapter review and then like a book review.
Yeah.
And make it probably a little longer. Keep it in tone with our normal hour and a half episodes. So we'll see how this one goes. It's also, I feel, shorter-ish. And I feel like, yes, there's some big things that happen, but there's also a lot of nothing that happens.
Yes.
But when we said this before, it went longer than anything. So, who knows how this actually will end up going.
I think this is one of, at least in this book, this is going to be the chapter that sets the entire scene for the rest of the books.
A lot happens here.
Yeah.
I say a lot happens. We just jump into it. We're just going to jump into it because it's best that way. I'm going to get to the first one here.
This time I actually ended up reading and taking my notes from the old book compared to the new one. I did read both, though.
So we're going to see how this works. Now, unfortunately, we're filming a little longer after reading the chapter than we normally do. So my memory's not as clear on the chapter. I have notes, and we're going to try. We're going to see how this works. Because my very first note is the very first page we open up, the Slow Mutants. And it just says, Roland's story.
Oh, that's... Well, yeah, because...
Because apparently he starts off with this story, I guess.
Mine is the next page. And it's pretty much about... I pretty much wrote down description of Roland's distaste and the very last paragraph, or the very last large paragraph being different. So I'm going to go with description of Roland's distaste, I assume for Martin. No, it's for the entire... Oh, what is it? This is not going well.
What are we doing?
There it is. Okay. It said, they made something decadent out of it, the gunslinger said. A play, a game. In his voice was all the unconscious distaste of the ascetic. His face, had there been stronger light to illuminate, it would have shown change, harshness, and sorrow. But his essential force had not been cut or diluted. The lack of imagination that still remained in that face was remarkable. So pretty much Roland is telling the story to Jake about how him and his friends would sneak off to go see this grand ball.
Yes. I remember this.
And how what would play out in front of him is that it would be his father, his mother, and Martin all sitting together, and that Martin would ask his mother to dance, and they would go out and the room would clear for them, and they'd do this nice, slow, waltz or whatever, but then his mom would always go back to his dad.
Well, as Roland describes in this portion of the book, it seems, because I don't remember this, I remember his father being an important man. I didn't really remember him being kind of like the king.
I don't think he...
Because it seems like he is. He leads this area. He is someone of super high importance, which means so is his mother.
Yes. And so after said dance with the second hand, the right-hand man, Martin the Enchanter, everybody pretty much doesn't do... Like, they stand around, but they don't do anything. But then as soon as, Stephen stands up and holds his hand out and she goes to him, everybody just applauds.
Was that the first part of this story? I'm sure. The thing I wrote down is apparently from the very first paragraph.
Okay.
But I don't remember what the paragraph was about because I just put Roland's story because that's just apparently what I do. So we're going to read some of this paragraph and figure out why I put it here because I don't know.
Oh, is it like the boys must put on their father's pants.
Well, I'm sure that has something to do with it. It's like, there were 3 of us that night. Cuthbert, Elaine, and me. We weren't supposed to be there because none of us had passed from the time of children. We were still in our clouts. It has to be them going and
Yeah, it's they're hiding in the balcony. Yeah.
Well, I thought this before being caught. Yeah, this is about them going and trying on their fathers.
Well,
or whatever the whole thing
what
is.
What it is that what he's talking about is there were 3 of us. We weren't supposed to be there, meaning they weren't supposed to be on the balcony hiding. What he related it to was boys must put on their father's pants in private, strut them in front of the mirror, and then sneak them back on the hangers. What he meant is that it seemed like something every boy did was sneak into this party and watch, and no one ever got caught. But they assumed that people knew they were up there, but just never said anything, because that's what boys do.
Yes. That's what we lose here. And put back the father's pants, and the fathers would pretend not to realize that they were folded different and they were in a different way.
Yes.
And just go on with things.
Shoe polish, mustache.
Yes.
And then he pretty much says, "Do you see?" And instead of Jake, I noticed that's one of the first things I noticed, is that it's no longer Jake, it's the
boy.
Yes.
Yeah, see that right here. The boy said nothing.
Yes.
Because he is very unhappy with Roland.
Yes.
He's not talking. He's not doing anything. Through most of this chapter, he barely says anything at all. This is all about Roland at this point.
Yes.
And Roland, as you can tell, as even I have here, he feels so guilty for what he's doing.
Yes.
He feels terribly guilty. Falsely, they've gone on. Because it just says, Roland talks feverishly. And I just put, he feels guilty.
Yeah, pretty much because Jake is being so quiet, because he knows what's going to happen, and Roland knows what's going to happen. He's just coming up with stories. He's coming up with anything to say to fill the silence. Like when you get nervous and just start talking.
And since Jake usually talks, Jake is usually this one who keeps talking, keeps saying things, and going on, where now that Jake isn't, there's just awful silence.
Yes, and it just weighs.
Which we're going to get to where they are, because where they are is terrible too.
But the one thing that I wrote down was, it says, I wrote the very last large paragraph is different. It says, yours is going to be different than this, and that's why I'm going to read mine. It was a moment of passage, boy.
Where?
Mine was on page 151.
How far from the beginning?
The next page, the second to the next page.
Okay, you're further along than I am. You're over here. Boy did not speak.
There's the crystal chandeliers way over here. So, there was 4.
There were 4. They should have there was a great film tablet.
So
there was
4
way down
page.
here.
You're on the next page.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Where am I?
Okay, so it was a moment of passage. There it is. But yours is okay. So here's what mine says. It was a moment of passage, boy. A time such as must be at the tower itself, when things come together and hold and make power in time. My father had taken control, had been acknowledged and singled out. Martin was the acknowledger. My father was the mover, and his wife, my mother, went to him. The connection between them. Betrayer. Completely different.
It was a moment of enormous gravity. Even we felt it in our high hiding place. My father had by then taken control of the quartet. You must ken the tet of the gun, and was on the verge of becoming Dinah of Gilead. If not all of in-world.
Yeah.
The rest knew it, Martin knew it better than any, except, perhaps, for Gabriel. Whatever that is. Gabriel Veris. That was. So yeah, those are drastically, completely different, not even a little bit the same.
No.
That alludes a lot more at betraying and what actually happened. This doesn't really touch on that at all.
No. And the fact, yes, that uses more of the language. He's talking about the quartet. Like you were saying, he's someone important. It sounds like he has become like the lead gunslinger, and he's on his way to becoming higher than that. And yours talks more about that. And then it also talks about how, Martin knew he was very important and was just getting more important, and it seemed like the only one who was unaware of anything was his mom. Meanwhile, this one is flat out like, you could see his father's important, Martin's got some weird things up his sleeve, and of course the foreshadowing of...
Because, I mean, if nothing else, King loved to foreshadow everything. That's what the man does. Yeah, mine was more on the previous page, and it was talking more about Susan again. I don't remember exactly. He found the truth with Susan Delgado in Magus, only to lose it again. Once there was a king, he might have told the boy, the eld whose blood, at the tainted as it may be, still flows in my veins. But kings are done, lad, and in the world of light, anyway.
He talks a lot about the world of light in this chapter, about how, gunslingers are light. They are the light.
And then I had the exact same. Oh, it's just more regret. They made something that can add. But the gunslinger said at last, a game. And his voice was all the unconscious distaste of the acidic. And,
yeah, that's the one that I read earlier. Yeah.
Shown, harshest, whatever. Yeah. We're moving on. Moving on.
Pretty much what they're doing right now is they are still traveling. They had just stopped. And so that's when he decided to tell Jake this story to fill the silence. And the next thing I have written down is the dancing. The dancing bothered him. Like how that's the one thing he remembers the most about that night is watching Martin and his mother just dance. He says over and over again, I remember how they danced. I remember how they danced. And he looked up at the unseeable stone roof, and it seemed for a moment that he might scream at it, rail at it, challenge it blindly, those dumb tonages of insensible granite that bore their tiny lives in its stone intestine. What hand could have held the knife that did my father to his death? I'm tired, the boy said wistfully. It's the first thing you hear out of Jake this entire time is, I'm tired.
Yeah.
And he just rolls over and...
Does he go to sleep? No, he doesn't go to sleep.
What happens is he rolls over, and then you get inside Roland's head again. He's thinking he goes back to thinking about their travels, how they're getting darker and it's getting darker and darker, and he's measuring the light by Jake's face, like how much of he can see of Jake's face. And then that, just thinking about that makes him fall asleep, and as soon as he's asleep, Jake hears the light breathing, he opens his eyes and looks at Roland. And my line is different than yours, I believe. Mine says, after the sound of his breathing had become long and steady and regular, the boy opened his eyes and looked at the gunslinger with an expression that was very much like love. And I think yours was both. This one.
Was it way down here?
Yeah.
After the sound of breathing had become long and steady and regular, the boy opened his eyes and looked at the gunslinger with an expression of sickness and love.
Yes. So.
Yeah. Another weird, I don't know, it was interesting, was this particular line. And it said, the boy spoke at last with a seemingly reluctance. She was your mother? I, Gabrielle of the Waters. I was like, that's interesting. I wonder what that actually means, because I don't know if it's ever touched upon again. It's just
I don't think so. I don't remember hearing it.
Yeah, daughter of Alan, wife of Stephen, mother of Roland. The gunslinger spread his hands apart in a mocking little gesture that seemed to say, "Here I am, and what of it?" Then he dropped into his lap again. My father was the last Lord of Light.
I'm pretty sure, the only thing that Jake says the entire time for me is, I'm tired. He doesn't ask anything else, so that definitely changed from...
It's just interesting. Gabrielle of the Waters.
I don't know.
If he was the last Lord of Light, then she was the last Lady of Light. Or Gabrielle of Waters, whatever that means.
I don't know, and I don't remember hearing that, like, even in the Wind Through the Keyhole. Like, I don't remember if it ever touches back on any of that.
So it's interesting. It's not something he decided to remove. He just left it, and it's kind of there, and it's interesting.
Well, it's not in this one.
We already spoke of that. Fake sleeve. We just talked about that.
But yeah, this pretty much how the last chapter ended was that they ended up going into like this, a crevice, a tunnel, whatever you want to call it, and they've been traveling through that ever since. So it's getting darker and darker, and they're craving the light, but they can't see each other. And
yeah, because one of my little notes, which says it's supposed to be here, but I don't see it. It just says pitch black.
Like the movie?
Like the movie. Vin Diesel's going to come out of the shadows. I'm here to save you. Where are you? I'm crawling. It's say. What is it? I guess I just wanted to point out that it's weird because we go through a lot of it. It's just pitch black.
Yeah,
they can't see each other. They can't do anything. They're just traveling along this path.
Well, mine, right after Jake had was looking at him, it said the gunslinger had lost most of his time since in the desert, which was changeless. Mm-hmm. He lost the rest of it here in these chambers under the mountains, which were lightless. Neither of them had any means of telling time, and the concept of hours became meaningless. In a sense, they stood outside of time. A day might have been a week, or a week a day. They walked, they slept, they ate thinly. Their only companion was the steady thundering rush of the water, drilling its auger path through the stone. They followed it, drank from its flat, and then, of course, was like, just don't put your feet in the water, because we don't know what's in there.
Exactly. Don't do it. We don't want anything to get you.
The rangefinder in his head took them on steadily. So pretty much, he's just going off intuition, going off the gunslinger.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're in a place kind of like they put prisoners. What's it called? We take them away from everybody else. You take them like a black hole and...
Solitude?
Yeah, solitude.
Isolation.
I don't forget what they call it. It's a particular cell. It's torture, essentially. Lightless, dark, alone. You lose sense of everything.
Isolation chamber.
I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but they get the point. We get the point.
Yeah.
We know what's going on. Until eventually, Jake finds a railroad.
Yes. He decides to just wander off ahead, and of course Roland gets kind of weary that he's just rolling, going off in the dark.
I think it's a railroad, the boy said dubiously. The gunslinger got up and walked towards the sound of Jake's voice, leading with one foot lightly to the test of pitfalls.
I love that. He's like, here. A hand reached out and cat's pawed the gunslinger's face. Just like... Don't quite think.
Let's see.
You haven't been around cats much, have you?
I'm not a cat person, okay? Let's see. The next thing I have is at the very bottom, which is always interesting. What else you got?
I think mine was, of course, the him finding the railroad. I did find it interesting that he did comment on how well Jake could see in the dark.
Better than he could.
Yes. And he didn't really say it was an age thing. He just felt like, his eyes seemed to dilate until there was no color left in them. And then I just found it cool that Jake has so much talent.
Just a rubber tube between his legs. On the pump, the perfectly legible. Although rust-clotted, letters was legend of unknown meaning. Emiko, lead-free. Emiko had become the totem of a thunder god, and they had worshipped him with the slaughter of sheep and the sound of engines. Rum, 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 rum.
Yes, the one thing you will definitely catch in this entire series is a lot of references to things that exist.
Yes, to the old world, before the world had moved on.
Yes. How Stephen King got away with it, I don't know.
I don't know.
There's a lot of people that even if you have to change at least one letter, otherwise people flip out. But apparently King's got some
well, maybe
leeway,
he
especially
before he did
with
it.
this.
I don't know. I don't know. And now railroad. We'll follow it, he said. The boy said nothing. The boy just continues to say nothing.
Right before that, one of the things that I thought was cool was he said, the gunslinger could only imagine black electric bullets flying through this forever night with affrighted searchlight eyes going before. He had never heard of such things, but there were skeletons in this world, just as there were demons. There's just all kinds of mysterious stuff.
Yeah, because they come across... I'm not sure exactly where it's at. They come across a handcart.
I don't know. I wrote, for some reason, on page 154, I wrote last line. And the last line on my page was, hulks, the gunslinger thought, only meaningless hulks in sands that once were seas.
Mm-hmm. Because I have that right here. Hulks, the gunslinger thought. And now a railroad. We'll follow it, he said. The boy said nothing.
And he's back to sing.
Yep.
Yeah.
The gunslinger extinguished the light, and they slept. Well, the gunslinger awoke. The boy was up before him, sitting on one of the rails and watching him sightlessly in the dark. I don't know how you know he's watching you. You can't see what's going on.
It's just a sense.
They followed the rails like blind men, Roland leading, Jake following. They slipped their feet along the rail. I can't read today. One rail away. What was that blind man? Speak. During the fourth period of waking and walking. Sweet Lord. That'd be terrible. Just in dark. Walk until we're tired. Sure. Let's just go with it. Get some sleep.
That's how you just tell time, is when your body gets tired, you go to sleep, you wake up, oh, well, this is our new day.
And it says, they literally stumbled on a handcart. The gunslinger ran into it chest high, and the boy walked on the other side, struck his forehead, and went down with a cry. The gunslinger made a light immediately, "Are you all right?" And the words sounded sharp, angry, and he winced at them. Yes, the boy was holding his head gingerly, and shook it once to make sure he had told the truth. They turned to look at what they had ran into. It was a flat, square plate of metal that sat mutely in the tracks. There was a seesaw handle in the center of the square. It descended into connections of cogs. The gunslinger had no immediate sense of what the thing's purpose, but the boy grasped it at once. It's a handcart. What? Handcart, the boy said impatiently, like the old cartoons. Look.
Huh. Mine says, like in the old movies.
Something weird to change, but...
Well, that's the other thing, is does he question that?
What, after that?
Like, does he question, like, the whole movie thing?
Like the old cartoons. Look, he pulled himself up and went to the handle. He managed to push it down, but it took all of his weight. All his weight hung over the handle to turn the trick. That's really... The handcart moved a foot with slight timelessness on the rails. Good, said a faint mechanical voice.
No. So...
Does he question the old one?
Whoa. I must have forgot that the entire thing is removed. There's no electronic voice in this one. At all.
That's weird?
Yeah.
Because that gets brought up like a whole bunch for this chapter.
No, what I had written down next was that, Jake had shown him how to use it, and then when Roland stepped up, it says the operation pleased him, but it disquieted him too. It would take them to their destination that much quicker. The cursed kiss again, he thought, and knew the man in black had meant for them to find this. I don't think that was in yours.
Something very similar, though, is in this.
Yeah.
Good, the faint mechanical voice. It made them both jump. Good, push. The mechanical voice died out. It worked a little hard, the boy said, and apologized for the thing. The gunslinger pulled himself up to Jake, shoved the handle down. The handcart with an immediate step. Good! Push again, the mechanical voice encouraged. He felt dry chest turn beneath his feet. Operation pleased him, and so did the mechanical voice, although he intended to listen to that no longer than necessary. Other than the pump on the way station, this is the first machine he'd seen in years that still worked well. But the thing disquieted him too. It would take them to their destination that much quicker. He had no doubt that whatever that the man in black had meant for them to find this too.
Yes. So what was changed was the curse kiss.
Yeah.
The curse kiss again. And the weird thing is that right after that in mine, because it doesn't have the mechanical voice or anything, it says, "Neat, huh?" The boy said, and his voice was full of loathing. "What are movies?" the gunslinger asked again.
Yeah, this is his voice is full of loathing. The silence was deep. Roland could hear his organs at work inside of his body, and the drip of water, and nothing else.
Yeah, that was like right after, but mine.
So,
Apparently Roland's like, "What are movies?"
Well, that's not brought up again in this at all. Look at it, Gunslinger said. He's in this.
But the next thing I have is the last line on the next page, for me at least.
Yeah, because this says the Gunslinger had a sudden vivid picture of the Great Hall. Here's after the sewing night, but they had been. There's one more. This image was followed by one of Allie, the scared woman from Tall, pushed and pushed.
Yeah.
The bullets. There was something else. Well, at some point he turns off the cart.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly where that is.
It pretty much, yeah, right there.
I'll push, the Gunslinger said. He began to push, and the voice began to speak. Good, push again. Good, push again.
Okay.
That would be the most annoying thing ever.
I'd be like, that's it, I'm walking.
I'm walking, screw it. We don't need to get there very fast. I don't care. He sent his hand fumbling along the post upon which the seesaw handle had been balanced. At last, he found what he was surely looking for, a button. He pushed it. Goodbye, pal, the mechanical voice said cheerily, and it was blessed silence for some hours. It's like, Roland, for you not knowing much about machines, I'm surprised you knew there was a button you could find to turn this off.
Well, he did say that this was the first machine he's seen in a while that still worked. So I guess he's familiar with machines, just not, like...
Really familiar with machines.
Mine was pretty much, it talks about them they're moving along, and that their food was almost gone. Neither of them were worried about it. So the next thing I brought up was this one, and it's because it once again talks about that looming, the looming weight that's starting to crash down on them. And it says, for the gunslinger, the tenseness of a coming climax was as imperceivable, but as real and as accretive as the fatigue of propelling the handcar. They were close to the end of the beginning. He felt like a performer placed on center stage minutes before the rise of the curtain. Settled in position was his first line held in his mind. He heard the unseen audience rattling programs and settling in seats. He lived with a tight, tidy ball of unholy anticipation in his belly and welcomed the exercise that let him sleep. The boy spoke less and less, but at their stopping place one sleep period before they were attacked by the Slow Mutants, he asked the gunslinger almost shyly about his coming of age.
Okay, well, there's a couple things that were in this version that's not there.
Okay.
Like, one, it says, they were close to the end of the beginning.
Yes.
Or at least he was. He felt like a performer placed on center stage minutes before the rise of the curtain. Just an extra little line in there. And the very end, it says, exercise that let him sleep. And when he did sleep, it was like the dead. Just small little lines. It's weird that he throws random little things.
I don't know. Reading that, it was just like, the tension is building. The air is getting thicker. Just stop.
And then finally, we're getting to the part of the book that I remember enjoying probably the most, his coming of age.
Yes.
Him going against Colt. It's very, very interesting.
Yes, I wrote down just the one line, coming of age.
I wrote again. Because I love to put when King talks about foreshadowing. And I put it in here again.
I did. The reason why I wrote down coming of age is because mine, how he opens up to it with Jake is different in your book.
Is it?
Yes.
For I would hear more of that, he said. It says he asked the gunslinger almost shyly about his coming of age. And it says, "For I would hear more of that," he said. The gunslinger had been leaning with his back against the handle, a cigarette from his dwindling supply of tobacco. The man never seems to run out of tobacco.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had like an infinite supply of tobacco. Clamped at his lips. He'd been on the verge of his usual unthinking sleep when the boy had asked the question. Why would thee still to know that? Why would thee still to know that? What? Why would thee still to know that?
I don't know.
That's
Originally it was, why would you want to know that?
I like that better. He asked, amused. The boy's voice was curious and stubborn, as if hiding embarrassment. I just would. And after a pause, he added, I always wondered about growing up. I bet it's mostly lies.
No. This one he just flat out says, it's mostly lies. Now, what does Roland say to him?
Alright, let's be on my next page.
Okay.
So, I'm trying to see where else. Just the bottom, yeah. What would you hear? What would you hear of wasn't my... What the... What you'd hear of wasn't my growing up, the gunslinger said. I suppose I did the first of that not long after. What thee'd hear of. Weird wording here. When you fought your teacher, Jake said remotely. That's what I want to hear. Roland nodded yes, of course. The day he had tried the line. That was a story any boy might want to hear. All right. My real growing up didn't start until after my da sent me away. I finished doing it at one place and another along the way, he paused. I saw a not man hung once.
Okay. So, how this one goes is, why would you want to know that? And then he said, I just do. I always wondered what about growing up. It's mostly lies. It wasn't growing up, the gunslinger said. I never grew up all at once. I did it one place and another along the way. I saw a man hung once. That was part of it, though I didn't know it then. I left a girl in a place called Kingstown 12 years ago. That was another part. I never knew any of the parts when they happened. Only later I knew that. He realized with some unease that he was avoiding. I suppose the coming of age was part 2, he said almost grudgingly. It was formal, almost stylized, like a dance. He laughed unpleasantly, like love. Love and dying have been my life. The boy said nothing. It was necessary to prove oneself in battle, the gunslinger began. And that's how mine starts.
I kind of like that better than how he's put it here.
It just seems like he tells more. He explains how growing up was in parts, not just all at once, not just one defining moment. And that one just kind of like, I'll just skip a bit.
Well, it just says it differently in a kind of an odd way. A not man, I don't understand. You could feel him but couldn't see him. Jake nodded, seeming to understand. He was invisible. Roland raised an eyebrow. He had never heard the word before. Do you say so? Yes. Then let it be so. In any case, there were folks who didn't want me to do it, felt they'd be cursed if I did it. But the fellow had gotten a taste for rape. Do you know what that is? Yes, Jake said. And I bet an invisible guy would be good at it too. How did you catch him? That's a tale for another day. Knowing he would be no other day, both of them knowing 2 years after that he felt the girl in a place called Kingstown. It's just, this like really expands what you did in a very short period. It just, there's a whole lot here.
I just felt like this was more effective.
I agree with you completely. I felt this was unnecessarily.
Yeah. Like, it draws it out, but not in a, I would say, a good way.
I agree.
Like, it's, why do we need to know about the Invisible Man? Like, what?
That adds nothing to this.
I guess they want us to know that there are more weird, strange things out there besides succubus and vampires, and I don't know.
Because, yeah, it eventually gets to, I mean, I never knew any of the parts when it happened.
Yeah.
Only later did I know that. He realized that with some of these, he was avoiding what
Yeah.
the boy wanted to hear. I suppose the coming of age was part of it. part of it. At that, he said, almost grudgingly, it was formal, almost stylized like a dance. He laughed unpleasantly. The boy said nothing. It was necessary to prove oneself in battle. The gunslinger began.
I don't know. It's
just yours that I felt
like it.
Like right there. Mine takes up literally like a page and a half.
Yeah. I don't know. It just... Sometimes saying less is more effective.
I agree.
Just
that was said better and easier and quicker, and just... This was just drawn out way too long. This didn't need to happen the way it did.
But then we get to the story of Court and Roland and... Well, pretty much, it doesn't even start out with Court. It just starts out with Roland walking. Just aimlessly walking as a boy. And that is one thing I did note, but I don't think I noted it till later. He is called the boy now. He is not Roland. He is not the gunslinger. He is the boy.
I didn't know that at all. I didn't realize that at all.
Yes.
I noted that it's been 3 years since the cook incident. Roland's now 14.
Yes, I did write 14 years old. Huh. I'm glad they didn't change his age. You know?
Well, I think he couldn't do that. Roland, Jake, maybe. Roland, no. The whole point is his age.
Yeah.
Changing that would not have been good.
Mine's not until the next page, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just walking around town, heading towards, or he walks through town, he's heading up into he's heading towards the roof.
Yes, let's just go with that. He's heading towards the roof when he gets stopped.
To have some alone time.
Let's
go with that. And yes, he's just passing by his mother's room just nonchalantly when Martin stops him.
Yeah, because that's what I have next.
Yeah.
His conversation with Martin.
Yay.
Martin calls to Roland. Your mother wants to speak to you.
Yeah.
Does she really, though? Does she really?
But his mother did not seem to want to see him. She sat in a low-backed chair by the large window in the central parlor of her apartments, the one which overlooked into hot black stone of the central courtyard. She was dressed in a loose, informal gown and looked at the boy only once. A quick, glinting, rueful smile, like autumn sun on stream water. During the rest of the interview, she studied her hands. Yeah, it's different. I remember being different.
You boy, Martin. They describe Martin very interestingly here. Does it have that in there?
Which one?
Right after he calls for him. See, he had passed the door when a voice called him. You, boy. It was Martin, the counselor.
Yes.
He was dressed with a surprisingly upsetting casualness. Black whipcord trousers, almost as tight as leotards, and a white shirt, open halfway down to his hairless chest. His hair was tousled.
The only difference with mine is that it was Martin the Enchanter, and he was dressed with a suspicious, upsetting casualness. But otherwise, who does that remind you of by chance? If you can bring the same person to mind that I'm thinking.
What?
Just his look. Nothing. Just when I read that, the immediate first thing that came to mind was The Labyrinth. David Bowie.
Oh, well, maybe so.
The unbuttoned shirt, the really tight pants.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Enchanter.
Now that you've thrown that out there.
So now I'm going to just picture Martin as David Bowie.
Why not?
Except I like David Bowie. Of course, his character was kind of the same in The Labyrinth. So.
Yeah, he wasn't a good guy in The Labyrinth. So
we'll go with that.
Come in. Your mother wants to speak to you. He smiles about it. In truth, his mother did not seem to want to speak to him. She sat in a low-backed chair with a large window in the central parlor of her apartment, the one which overlooked a hot blank stone of the central courtyard. Seems different.
What?
Maybe not.
Oh.
She was dressed in a loose, informal gown, kept slipping from her shoulders. She looked at the boy only once, a quick, glinting, rueful smile, like autumn sun in a reel of water. During the interview which followed, she studied her hands rather than her son.
So, I wrote down the fourth, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's because I don't believe it exists in the newer one.
Why doesn't? When you wrote down the 4. What was it?
I wrote down the 4th paragraph. Like, it said 4th P, and then, because it says, pretty much he saw her seldom now, and then he felt an amorphous fear and uncoalesced hatred for Martin, his father's right-hand man, or was it the other way around, was born. So pretty much that was when it started, is when he kind of got this weird feeling between the two of them, like, I think I know what's going on. But what's not in yours is, and of course, there had already been some backstreet talk which he honestly thought he hadn't heard.
People knew things. It's kind of getting around, that rumor.
Yes, and I don't know why that was removed from the new one, because that would make so much sense if you're just walking through the towns and you're just hearing things like, oh, Martin and Gabrielle are just a little too close these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Or, you saw the way they danced at the ball, right? Like,
yeah, because this just goes, hatred for Martin, his father, close to the fire, was born. Are you well, Ro?
Yep. And that's exactly the line right after that.
Interesting, she called him Ro.
Yeah, that's true too.
Like, Roland's not really...
Our little Ro.
Yeah, like, Roland's not particularly a long name to begin with, and Ro is just kind of... It's just interesting. Your study goes well.
Yes.
Vanny is pleased and corked her mouth quirked a second name as if she had tasted something bitter. I'm trying, he said. They both knew he was not flashingly intelligent like Cuthbert, or even quick like Jamie. He was a plotter, a bludgeoner. Even Elaine was better at studies. And David? She knew his affection for the hawk. The boy looked up at Martin, still smiling paternally, sure. Down on his past his prime. His mother seems to wince. For the moment, Martin's face seemed to darken and grip her shoulder to tighten. She looked at the hot whiteness of the face. Blah, blah, blah. It's a charade, he thought. A game. Who is playing with whom?
Yeah. So pretty much, she asks about his hawk, which, of course, this has been a while since we've heard from David, or heard about
David. This would be like 3 years later.
Yeah. So it's like, this is an older bird now. Yeah. So, of course, instead of just having a casual conversation about it, he purposely looks at Martin and says, past his prime. So it's like, ooh, so someone's getting a little snippy.
Well, they get a little bit more snippy, a little bit further.
Yes, that's my favorite part. Because the next thing I have written down is interaction between Roland and Martin.
You have a cut on your forehead, Martin said, still smiling, and pointed a neglected finger at the mark of Court's latest. Thank you for this instructive day. Bashing. Are you going to be a fighter like your father, or are you just slow?
This time, she did wince.
Both, the boy said. He looked steadily at Martin and smiled painfully. Even in here, it was very hot. Martin stopped smiling abruptly. You can go to the roof now, boy. I believe you have business there. My mother has not yet dismissed me, bondsman.
Right before that, this one says, but Martin had underestimated. They had been speaking in the low tongue, a parody of informality, but now the boy flashed into high speech. So, yeah.
No, they took that away.
Yeah. So, yes, it went from casual conversation to, no, I'm the son of a gunslinger. You're going to hear me.
Yeah, I mean, this still has the same thing. That just makes it a lot more serious. A lot more serious. Martin's face twisted as if the boy had lashed him with a quirk. The boy heard his mother's dreadful, woeful gasp. She spoke his name, but the painful smile remained intact on the boy's face, and he stepped forward. Will you give me a sign of fealty, bondsman? In the name of my fathers whom you serve. Martin stared at him, rankly unbelieving. Go, Martin said gently. Go and find your hand. Smiling rather horribly at the boy. The boy went.
That's the, another thing that was changed, is that with this one it says, as he closed the door and went back the way he came, he heard his mother wail. It was a banshee sound. Then he heard Martin's laugh. I believe in yours, he actually hits her.
Yeah, and it says, and then, unbelievably, the sound of his father's man striking her and telling her to shut her quack.
Yeah. And then...
he heard Martin's laugh.
Yeah.
And the boy continued to smile as he went to his test.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, this whole incident, which was purposefully derived this way, makes Roland decide it's time.
Yes, because if you haven't gathered it from just little bits and pieces, is that in order to become a gunslinger, you have to defeat your teacher. So, in order to become a gunslinger, he has to go through this test with Court.
Yes,
this he has to defeat
extremely serious test.
It's pretty much almost a fight to the death. Until one wields.
Yes.
Like, if you wield to that, it yields to the other one. Then, if the teacher yields, then you move forward as a gunslinger.
If you yield, you're banished.
Yes, you are exiled.
Exiled.
And if you decide not to take the test, you kind of just fade back into the woodwork, and you just are never heard from again.
Yeah, you seem to get other jobs and do other things.
Yes.
But you're not a gunslinger. Even though you've gone through all of this, which is a lot.
Yes. So the next thing I have written down is literally him and Court talking. So did you have anything before that?
Yeah, I'm somewhere right there as well. Main building, screaming. Yeah, Jamie knew in a flash of intuition, knew that what was to come, and his fear of ecstasy was torn between following Roland and going after the others. What should I do? Should I go with Roland, maybe stop him, or should I go get everyone else so we can watch?
Pretty much, so what does he decide?
Oh, we gotta go get the other guys.
Yeah.
Cuthbert, Elaine, Thomas, he screams. Sounded puny and thin as heat. They had known, all of them, in the intuitive way of boys have, that Roland would be the first of them to try the line. But this was too soon. Yes.
If you haven't gathered, most people do not take this test until they're like 18.
Yeah, they say somewhere in here. I don't know if I marked it or not, or it's a little bit later.
5 years too early. So if he's 14.
Yeah, I know. There's actually particular.
Oh.
There's a spot where he actually says. Actually, it's a little bit. It's a couple more pages. That's what it is. But normal age for manhood is 18. His father did it at 16.
Yes. So he was the youngest so far until Roland.
Yes. His father was the youngest until Roland.
So pretty much you have Roland walking through town in just a complete dead stare. Like he's still smiling. He's just walking, heading towards Court's house. He kicks down the door.
He does, and yells for him. Because he had never been inside before.
Yeah. And then pretty much he kicks the table, sending it across the room and into the counter. Mm-hmm. So not only does he kick down the man's door, he kicks the table.
He kick everything, apparently.
Yeah.
Here was a public man's privacy. The faded refuge of a violent midnight carouser, there we go, who had loved the boys of 3 generations, roughly, and made them into gunslingers.
So pretty much, it's like he goes in, charges forward pretty much, he calls for Court, and he hears shuffling, but he knows not to just walk straight in, too far in, because he knows that as soon as he even got close to the house, Court was already awake.
Good old Court. Court! He kicked the table, as we discussed.
Yes. And then he says, Court, I want you, bondsman.
Bondsman. And now he spoke the high speech. And Court swung the door open. He was dressed in thin underwear shorts. I don't even want to think about that in Court. A squat man with bow legs. And scars from top to toe. Thick with twists of muscles. Bulging belly. I think it's a very nice description of Court. He's not a pretty man. Saluted formally. Teach me no more, bondsman. Today I teach you. You're early. Puler?
Yeah.
What does Puler mean? What is
I can't remember. I wanted to say that I was going to write it down, but I didn't. There was another word. He actually calls him in mine, see, I can't even say the word Renage? See, it's not in yours. Instead of calling him, what was it? 164. The entire time, like when he's calling him, okay, what's your say? We were right there when he says, "You're 5 years early. I should judge. I will only ask you once. Will you what? What years is will you cry off?"
Yeah, because that was about 3 days. His court said casually, but he was spoken the high speech. This is 2 years earlier, at the very best. I should judge.
Whoa.
Yeah, mine says different. Yeah, court said casually,
5 years early.
But he spoke in the high speech 2 years earlier, at the very best. I should judge. I will ask only once. Will you cry off? I think because this is comparing him to his father.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, 2 years earlier at the very best.
Yes, the boy.
2 years early at the very best.
The boy only smiled his hideous, painful smile. For Court, who had seen the smile on a score of bloodied, scarlet-skied fields of honor and dishonor, it was answer enough. Perhaps the only answer he would have believed.
It's too bad, the teacher said abruptly. You have been most promising pupil. The best in 24 years, I should say. I will be sad to see you broken and set upon a blind path. But the world has moved on. Bad times are on horseback. Do not speak. Which question of bondsman do you recognize your command?
When he says that Court stood slow, okay, well, they have like a tradition, of course. He says, I am your bondsman, boy. I recognize your command and bow to it now, if never again, with my heart. And then, of course, he kneels down in front of Roland, and Roland touches his throat and says, rise, bondsman, in love. And then mine says, Court stood slowly, and there might have been pain behind the impassive mask of his reamed features. This is waste. I break my own oath and wait. But in that entire line, he's calling him something else that's not in yours, and I can't say the word.
Yeah, this is waste. Cry off, you foolish boy. I break my oath. Cry off and wait.
Yeah.
The boy said nothing.
See? It's pretty much means the same thing as try off, but I can't. I don't know how you renage.
See, I was in renage.
Renage.
But yeah, I don't know the word.
I was trying to look it up, but
I like cry off better.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah, cry off and wait. Very well. If you say, the boy said nothing. Very well. If you say so, let it be so. Court's voice became dry and businesslike. 1 hour, and the weapon of your choice. You will bring your stick. I always have. How many sticks have been taken from you, Court? Which was tantamount to asking? How many boys have entered the square and beyond the great hall and returned as gunslinger apprentices? No stick will be taken from me today, Court said slowly. I regret it. There's only once, boy. The penalty for over-eagerness is the same as the penalty for unworthiness. Can you not wait? The boy recalled Martin standing over him, the smile, and the sound of the blow from behind the door. No. Very well. What is your weapon of choice? The boy said nothing. Court's smile showed a jagged ring of teeth. Wise enough to begin. In an hour, you realize you will probably never see your father, your mother, or your cob babies again. I know what exile means, Roland said softly.
So pretty much the next scene opens up with him going to the barn.
Yep.
And his talk with David.
Good old David.
Hawk. Did you have anything in that specific one?
Yeah, it just is a little quote.
Yeah.
About what Court had said, which I don't know where it is in here. It was an old hawk. The boy hoped. Just that you couldn't friend a hawk.
Uh-oh. The boy began to stroke David very carefully. Court most probably would not have believed it if he had seen it, But Court did not believe the boy's time had come either. I think you die today, he said, continuing to stroke. I think you will be made sacrifice, like all those little birds we trained you on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember? No? It doesn't matter. After today, I am the hawk. David stood on his arm, silent and unblinking, indifferent to his life or death. But above that it was, you cannot friend a hawk, they said, unless you are a hawk yourself, alone and only a I can't say the word for some reason. Sojourner in the land, without friends or the need of them. The hawk pays no coinage to morals.
Oh, this says to love or morals.
Yeah.
David was an old hawk now. The boy hoped that he himself was a young one.
You are old, the boy said reflectively, and perhaps not my friend. Even a year ago, you would have had my eyes instead of that little string of meat. Isn't it so? Court would laugh. But if we get close enough, which is it, bird? Age or friendship? David did not say. The boy hooded him and found the jesses, which were looped in the end of David's perch. They left the barn. And so it begins.
And so it begins. Yeah, it's kind of like, do you, like those birds you trained you on? Yeah, you were further. It doesn't matter. After the day, I am the hawk, and each year on this day, I'll shoot the sky in your memory.
Yeah.
I don't think you do that. I think you just let that be.
Be like, do something, but probably not waste your ammo. I mean, just a thought. But the next thing I have written down is the description of the courtyard as far as which ends go to which places.
Yeah. You can throw that out there because the next thing I have is not for another page or so.
Okay. So what I had written down is that pretty much they described the courtyard, how the teacher comes in at one end and behind him is pretty much the town, the kingdom, however you want to call it. And if you pass through there, you're a gunslinger. Where the student comes through from the opposite end is back, like there's fields and roads and other towns and everything behind them. And so pretty much where you end up at the end of this battle is where you go. If you defeat your master, you get to walk where he came in at and head towards the kingdom. If you lose, you pretty much turn around, sulk back to where you came in as a student, and have to just keep on walking until you're done.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah. That's exile.
Exile.
And it's 50 yards, I believe. It's a 50-yard court. But that's pretty much all I have until the battle.
So yeah, my next one is about what we talked about earlier, the aged man. Each end was usually clogged with tense speculators and reluctants, for the ritual was usually forecast with great accuracy. 18 was the common age. Those who had not made their test by the age of 25 usually slipped into obscurity as freeloaders unable to face the brutal all-or-nothing fact of the field and the test.
So that's what happened to me. I just didn't become a gunslinger.
Yeah, we also didn't get our letters to Hogwarts either, but the crying shame. But on this day, there was none but Jamie de Curry, Cuthbert Allgood, Alan Johns, and Thompson Whitman. They clustered at the boy's end, gape-mouthed and frankly terrified. Your weapon, stupid, Cuthbert hissed in agony. You forgot your weapon. I don't think you did. I have it, the boy said dimly. He wondered if the news of his lunacy had reached yet the central building to his mother and to Martin. His father was on a hunt, not due back for days, and in this he felt a sense of shame, for he felt that in his father he would have found understanding, if not approval. Has Court come? Court is here.
And so he is.
So he is. And my next one is on the next page.
So pretty much it just starts out with, they have once again, their tradition, things they have to say. It said, he began the litany which all of them, chosen by the blind blood of their fathers, had known since early childhood, learned against the day when they would perchance become men. Have you come here for a serious purpose, boy? I have come for a serious purpose, teacher. Have you come as an outcast from your father's house? I have so come, teacher, and would remain outcast until he had bested Court. If Court bested him, he would remain outcast forever. Have you come with your chosen weapon? I have so come, teacher. What is your weapon? My weapon is David, teacher.
See, there's an actual line here. What is your weapon? This was the teacher's advantage.
I just skipped it.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know. There's so many things that are changed. I did not know.
Yes, that was the teacher's advantage, yeah.
Court halted only briefly. He was surprised and very likely confused. This was good. Might be good. So then have you at me, boy. I do. In whose name? In the name of my father. Say his name. Stephen's chain. Of the line of Eld. Be swift then.
Yeah, once again, in the older books, they don't really say the name of his parents that much at all. So that line was completely omitted. Or added to yours. The all line says is, so then you Court halted only briefly. So then have you at me, boy. I do. Be swift then.
Oh, so they still care about the father. Yes. Even though that they use the line in the name of your father.
Yes.
All the time.
Yep.
You don't actually want to say his name?
The boy sighed, fluttering like birds as their compatriots stepped to meet him. My weapon is David, teacher.
Alright, where's my little thing? It's on the next page. Let's see what I see at the top. So, oh yeah. Now his tracks, he saw old warrior's eyes drop to the bird and widen with surprise and slow droning comprehension. Now he understood. Oh, you little fool. Court nearly groaned, and Roland was suddenly furious that he should be spoken to so. At him, he cried, raising his arm, and David flew like a silent brown bullet. Stubby wings pumped once, twice, 3 times, before crashing the Court's face, talons searching, beak digging, red drops flew up into the hot air. It's a pretty intense battle.
Yes.
And David does so much.
I know, holy shit. Like, literally, you have a raptor. You have a bird of prey clinging to your face.
I don't know how Court just continues.
He
does. He does remarkably well with this bird.
Pretty much, this bird is tearing at his bad eye. Mm-hmm. And what is the only thing he can think to do? He grabs his staff, which we forgot to really describe Court's stick. It is spiky on one end, and then on the other end, it's flat like a spatula. Pretty much. So, he literally takes the spatula end and starts beating his own face.
It's gotta hit the bird!
Yeah. He beat his own face 3 times, biceps flexing mercilessly. David fell away, broken and twisted. One wing flapped at the ground frantically. His cold predator's eyes stared fiercely into the teacher's bloody, streaming face. Court's bad eye now bulged blindly from its socket. And during this time, Roland took the time to advance, pretty much. So he's advanced on him, and he delivers a kick to Court's temple, connecting solidly.
Which it says, it should have ended it.
Yes.
And it really should have. A kick like that from someone else they're doing, it should have ended it.
Oh,
but it didn't, of course. But it did not. For a moment, Court's face went slack, and then he lunged, grabbing the boy's foot.
Yeah, so someone grabs your foot. Obviously, Roland skips back a bit, trips over himself, falls on his back, and Court's already on his feet, just ready to go at him.
Oh, yeah. Court was ready to fall him and finish it. Roland had lost his advantage, and both of them knew it. For a moment, they looked at each other, the teacher standing over the pupil with gouts of blood pouring from his left side of his face. His bad eye now closed except for the thin slit of white. There would be no brothels for Court this night. No, he's not doing well. Something ripped jaggedly at the boy's hand. It was David, tearing blindly at whatever he could reach. Both wings were broken. It was incredible that he still lived. The boy grabbed him like a stone, unmindful of the diving beak that was taking the flesh from his wrist in ribbons. As Court flew at him, all spread eagle, the boy threw the hawk upwards. Hey, or hiya, David.
Hi.
Kill. And then Court blotted out the stun and came down on top of him.
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, so pretty much the bird was caught between them, once again tearing at Court's face. This time it had hooked its talon into his ear. Yeah, and
Court's neck.
Meanwhile, Roland, of course, is trying to do what he can not to get injured. And, it says he flailed against the tree of Court's neck in 3 hard chops. It was like hitting ribbed stone. So
Court's fist struck against the bird once, breaking its back. Again, at the neck, and the neck snapped away at a crooked angle, and still the talon clung. There was no ear now, only a red hole tunneled into the side of Court's skull. The third blow sent the bird flying, at last clearing Court's face. And the bird's dead. The bird's very dead at this point.
The bird's very dead, and what does Roland take this time to do? Just give him a clear, pretty much, just upward thrust to the nose.
Yep. The moment was clear. The boy brought the edge of his hand across the bridge of his teacher's nose, using every bit of his strength and breaking the thin bone. Blood sprayed.
But, that still doesn't stop Court.
Of course it doesn't. This man is tough.
He's pretty much like, he's kind of looking for his stick.
Rolled away, found Court's stick, and rose to his knees. Which was my very next note, finally. We got to it. Just him getting the stick, finally.
Yeah.
Which it still isn't done.
No, Court just got up on his own knees and was just... Mine, I don't know if yours said the same thing, but mine says, his face was contained with gore. Oh, his face was curtained with gore. The one seeing eye rolled madly in its socket. The nose was smashed over to a haunted, leaning angle. Both cheeks hung in flaps.
Well, there we go. The warrior's face was curtained with gore. It says the old warrior's face was curtained with gore. The one seeing eye rolled fiercely in its socket. The nose was smashed over in a haunting, leaning angle. Both cheeks hung in flaps. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that stayed the
same. The boy held the man's stick like a grand points player making for a pitch in the rawhide bird.
Mine just says the boy held a stick like a baseball player waiting for the pitch.
Yeah, this doesn't say to go with that particular metaphor. Court double fainted and then came directly at him. Roland was steady, not fooled in the slightest by this last trick, which both knew was a poor one. The ironwood swung in a flat arc, striking Court's skull with a dull, thudding noise. Court fell on his side, looking at the boy with lazy, unseeing expression. A tiny trickle of spit came from his mouth. Yield or die, the boy said. His mouth was filled with wet cotton. The Court smiled. Nearly all consciousness was gone, and he would remain tended in the college for a week afterward, wrapped with blackness of coma.
I yield, Gunslinger. I yield, smiling. Court's clear eye closed. And so that's pretty much like Roland's like, so he kind of like bends down and starts shaking him. Like, you're not supposed to actually die.
No. Court's eyes closed. It was shook gently. Persistence.
Yes, he needed the key.
Yep, the key. The key, the Gunslinger said. My birthright, teacher. I need it.
So, before we move on with that little note, there is one thing I'd like to point out, because you had said you hadn't mentioned it, or you hadn't noticed it while you were reading. So, this entire story, Roland has been the boy. And as soon as Court said, I yield, Gunslinger, I yield, smiling, it changes to the Gunslinger shook him gently. Mm-hmm. So he is now transformed from the boy to the Gunslinger. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was a really cool change. Like, it was consistent, like, the boy, and then suddenly, as soon as he yields, he is a Gunslinger. I thought that was really cool.
Because he is.
I know, but it was...
That's the whole point. It was a nice addition that, not really necessary, and I didn't even pay attention to, but, yes, it's very cool that they actually did that. So what was my next thing? I've got 2 little notes. Oh. Read bottom. I guess it's the bottom here. Court muttered.
Mine was court's counsel. That was the next thing I had.
Oh, yeah, so... Yeah, pressing I feared. Yeah, the key. Stupid, and yet you... yeah, okay. Is your need so fearsome, then? Court muttered, as if in his sleep. So pressed, I feared so. So much need should have made you stupid, and yet you won. The key, the hawk, was a fine ploy, a fine weapon. How long did it take you to train the bastard? I never trained David. I friended him. The key.
So he really wants that key.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. The key is pretty much when they get their guns.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the sandalwood grip guns that his dad has, but it's just the training guns, the apprentice guns.
And this last little thing, which is my next one. Here we go. I teach you no more, Gunslinger. You have surpassed me, and 2 years younger than your father, who was the youngest. But let me counsel. What, impatiently? Wipe that look off your face, maggot! In surprise, Roland did as he was bid, although being crouched hidden behind his face, or whatever. Court nodded, then whispered a single word. Wait. What? The effort it took for the man to speak lent the words great emphasis. Let the word and the legend go before you. There are those who will carry both. His eyes flickered over the gunslinger's shoulder. Fools, perchance. Let your shadow grow hair on its face. Let it become dark. He smiled grotesquely. Given time, words may even enchant an enchanter. Do you take my meaning, Gunslinger? Yes, I think I do. Will you take my last counselor as your teacher?
So, what did you think of that? Like, what did you think Court was talking about?
You need to grow up a little bit.
I don't think so.
What do we have? What do we have?
Okay, so what I got of that is that because he's saying let your shadow grow hair on its face, is I'm thinking he means that instead of going directly to get the guns, directly to go face Martin, let Cuthbert and them run around like telling the rumors of how, Roland has at this age already taken the test, already defeated Court. Let it spread around town. Let it get to Martin that right after they talked, he went and literally became a gunslinger at his age. And by doing that, kind of rattle him a bit. Before just walking in and being like, hey, look, I have guns.
But Court doesn't know anything about Martin in this whole incident.
I think Court picks up on more than he thinks. Okay, you are, not in your book apparently, but in my book, once again, rumors are already going around the town. Court pretty much lives in a brothel, okay? So
you trying to tell me he knows what's going on?
I'm pretty sure he knows what's going on, and just that line, given in times, words may even enchant an enchanter.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna go with, I really think that's what he's talking about. Because otherwise, he would have just said, like, hey, wait till you have hair on your face, wait till... But he's...
Well, they speak in mystery, okay? It was cooler that way.
But yes, I did like the right after that. It said, the gunslinger rocked back on his heels, a hunkered thinking posture that foreshadowed the man. Because we see that posture so many times throughout this book. Him just hunkered down on his, like, just kind of leaned back, just sitting there.
And then for some reason, I skipped like 2 pages. My next one. So, unless you have anything else.
Nope, mine was Court's last cancel. Well, pretty much his answer to that was, I will bury my hawk tonight, teacher, and later go into Lower Town to inform those in the brothels that will wonder about you.
You won't be here tonight.
Yeah.
You're going to be in a coma for the next week. You ain't going to be around.
Yeah. And then, pretty much, he does his first orders as a gunslinger. He tells 2 of his friends to go get nurses, and then tells another one to, start preparing things, and then Cuthbert, of course. You goddamn horse drover. You haven't left enough meat for the rest of us to pick off the bone.
And then he going to bury his hawk. And Cuthbert asked, "Shall I help you with the hawk?" Cuthbert asked. "Yes," the gunslinger said. "That would be lovely, Bert."
Bert. But yes, so he left his friends to pick up Court's pieces. The nurses came, they helped Court, and the gunslinger went into town for the first time as a gunslinger and found himself a woman.
Yeah, but I had to write this down because I've written it down every single
time. I knew it, exactly.
I had to. Downstairs and far away, someone was playing Hey Jude. Ragtime. I just thought it was interesting. Once again, that darn song just pops back up.
It's catchy.
It's a catchy tune.
So pretty much my next thing is the story ends like he just pretty much, it says the gunslinger did not of course tell the boy all of it. And it says, "Are you asleep?" And he said, "No." "Did you understand what I told you?" "Understand it?" the boy asked with cautious scorn. "Understand it? Are you kidding?" "No." But the gunslinger felt defensive. He had never told anyone about his coming of age. And it said, of course the hawk had been a perfectly acceptable weapon, yet it had been a trick, too, and a betrayal. The first of many. Am I readying to throw this boy at the man in black? "I understood it," the boy said. "It was a game, wasn't it? Did grown men always have to play games? Does everything have to be an excuse for another kind of game? Do any man grow up, or do they only come of age?" "You don't know everything," the gunslinger said, trying to hold his slow anger. "No, but I know what I am to you." "And what is that?" the gunslinger asked tightly. "A poker chip?" The gunslinger felt an urge to find a rock and brain the boy. Instead, he held his tongue. "Go to sleep," he said. "Boys need their sleep." And in his mind he heard Martin's echo, Go and find your hand." He sat stiffly in the darkness, stunned with horror and terrified for the first time in his existence of anything, of the self-loathing that might come.
Yeah, there's a couple little small changes. Like I said, the gunslinger trying to hold his anger slowly. "You're just a boy." Yeah. But then we're trying to your poker chip. It also says the gunslinger felt an urge to find a rock and brain the boy. Instead, he spoke calmly.
Oh, okay. But no, the one thing I had written down was the whole betrayal thing, the whole using David as a trick, pretty much. And then he said, "Am I readying to throw this boy at the man in black?"
So this says a little bit different. And it says, first of many. Yeah, yet it had been a trick and a betrayal, the first of many. And tell me, am I really preparing to throw this boy? It's different wording. At the man in black?
Yeah.
Instead of readying. Ready? I can't. Whatever.
Readying.
Readying. It's preparing.
Preparing.
Same thing. I don't know why I changed it, but.
Prepare yourself. So the next thing I have is on the next page, but pretty much the conversation's over. We are back to their travel.
We're back to their travel and to the Slow Mutants.
Yes, the Slow Mutants finally come into play.
Yes, like towards the end of this chapter.
Which is one of the questions we had at the very end of our last one was, what were the Slow Mutants? You were thinking zombies. I was thinking... I don't remember what I was thinking. I was just thinking they were mutated people because of all the animals and stuff that were mutated. So it's kind of... I'm still not really sure what they are. It says... The greenness was a face, and the face was abnormal. Above the flattened nose was an insectile node of eyes, looking at them expressionlessly. But, so... We know that they have, like, more eyes than they need. I'm pretty sure it described one of them as having, like, tentacle arms. Yes, the face was that of a starving idiot. The faint, naked body had been transformed into a knotted mess of tentacular limbs with suckers. So we don't know what they are. They're just mutated people that glow.
I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are. They've been exposed to too much radiation. Instead of turning the Hulk, they turn into this.
But yes, they're glow-in-the-dark people.
I love that Roland says, they're scared of us.
I know.
As they attack.
They're probably just as frightened of us as we are of, and then bam.
See, I don't think they'll bother us. They're probably just as frightened as we are of. Then one of the forms breaks free and stumbles towards them. The face was a starving idiot, but yeah.
One of the tentacles pawed across the platform. So yes, they have tentacles.
Yeah. They're not, but they're also not very scared of you either. They're coming after you pretty well.
That one went down pretty easy, though. Just one bullet to the head.
Okay, the bottom of the next page is something else I want to bring up, because they finally bring it up. Pumped steadily, but did not increase his speed. The Slow Mutants could smell their terror. He knew that, but he doubted if the terror alone would be enough to motivate them. He and the boy were, after all, creatures of the light. And how they must hate us, he thought, and wondered if they had hated the man in black in the same way. He thought not, or perhaps he had passed among them only like a shadow of the dark wing of the greater darkness, which is actually not what I was looking for at all. But still interesting. This gotta be it. Oh yeah. He says, "You may have to pump for me," the gunslinger said. "Can you?" "Yes." "Then be ready." The boy stood close to him, and the body poised. His eyes took in the Slow Mutants, only the past traveling to see. Why can't? Oh, finally, it's the bottom of this phrase. The boy assumed a psychic bulge of terror, as if his very id had somehow sprung out through his pores to form a shield.
Yeah.
If he had the touch, the gunslinger reasoned that was not impossible.
The touch.
Finally,
Woo!
Bringing up the touch. Finally talking about maybe he would be versed in the touch.
Yes.
Which they just don't bring up anywhere else in the book.
No. My next thing was pretty much, so they're sitting there trying to pump the handcart along, and one of them grabs Jake's leg.
Yes.
And there's like a tug of war going on, and I have it written down because I think it was a slightly different, like slightly said different in yours, but it said, the handcar was slowing down. The others began to close in. The lame, the halt, the blind. Perhaps they only looked for a Jesus to heal them, to raise them Lazarus-like from the darkness. It's the end for the boy, the gunslinger thought with perfect coldness. This is the end he meant. Let go and pump, or hold on and be buried. The end for the boy.
Well, I'm trying to figure out where you are exactly to even compare this.
We were talking about pretty much right after you were talking about the id, like the psychic id.
I went to the next page because I read all that. The Slow Mutants, which I just saw on yours.
Go down. It's the end for the boy.
Oh, it's way down here. No wonder I hadn't gotten that far. Slowing down, the others began to close in. The lame, the halt, the blind. Perhaps they were looking for Jesus to him, to raise them Lazarus from the darkness. It's the end of the boy, the gunslinger thought with perfect coldness. There is the end he meant. Let it go and pump or hold on and be buried. The end of the boy.
Okay, so it is the same.
He gave a tremendous yank on the boy's arm and shot the mutant in the belly. For one frozen moment, its grip grew even tighter and Jake began to slide off the edge again. Then the dead mud mitts loosened, and the Slow Mutie fell on its face behind the slowing handcart, still grinning. "I thought you'd leave me," the boy said, sobbing. I thought. "Hold on to my belt," the gunslinger said. "Hold on, just as tight as you can." And then they have to come to a stop.
Yes, because the mutants have put rocks on the track, so it's either you crash, you stop, and one of you gets off to move the rocks,
exactly.
Or you just make a stand.
In which he has to convince Jake that he has to be the one to move these rocks.
Yes. I can't give you a gun, and I can't move the rocks and shoot too. You have to get down.
Which he does.
Yeah.
Roland does his thing, because Roland's awesome with that gun.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how he can never seem to shoot the man in black. He tries.
He tries.
He tries.
Magic.
Something along those lines. Yeah, mine's not for a couple more pages.
Yeah,
so.
mine isn't either. So pretty much, just to speed through this, he's sitting there throwing rocks, things are getting closer, Roland's just shooting them down, until finally it's cleared, and, Jake jumps back on, and they move on their merry way.
Yep. And my very next thing is, like the bottom of one of these pages, they're gone, the boy said timidly.
Yeah.
The words ripped from his mouth like the wind. You can slow down now. We left them behind. The gunslinger did not hear. They careened onward into the strange dark.
Yes, so pretty much, Roland's on adrenaline rush. He's pumping, and even though, Jake's like, dude, you can slow down, he doesn't. And
yours don't have these. I recognize the old one.
Yeah.
The, numbered in-betweens that breaks things up.
Yeah.
Because this one goes from 11 to just one line.
Yes.
Then 12.
Yeah, mine is, but the gunslinger did not hear. They careened onward into the strange dark. Then on the next page, they went on 3 periods of waking and sleeping without incident, and then a gap, and then the next.
Yeah, this is, they went on for 3 days without incident.
Days.
3 more days on this cart.
Well, they called 3 periods of waking, so we don't know if it's days, hours, anything.
They say days right here.
Yes,
okay.
and it's days. Days.
It says days right here.
Shut it.
We have to listen to the book. The book says days.
Yes, in parentheses. Not parentheses. What the fuck?
But then it immediately follows up. During the 4th period of waking.
Yeah.
And it says halfway through, 3/4, they did not know. Knew only that they weren't tired enough yet to stop.
Yes, they saw a light.
Yep, they reached the light, but not day.
The end, the boy said tightly. It's the end.
Not quite, but kind of close. We're getting there. Yep, they reach a... What would you call it? A terminal?
I guess Jake describes it as a subway station.
Yeah, he says subway.
An underground subway station, so...
He was because I thought this was pretty interesting too. Written above were series of characters in various languages. The gunslinger presumed. He was astonished to find that he could read the last one. It was an accident. No? Ancient. God, Stefan, you can't read. An ancient route of high speech itself, and said, track 10 to surface and points west.
All things point west.
The light inside brighter, the tracks met with merged through a series of switches, and some of the traffic lanterns were still working. Flashes. They rolled between the residents' piers, blah blah blah. The gunslinger, hard, blah blah blah. It's like a subway, the boy said. Subway. Never mind. You wouldn't know what I'm talking about. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore.
Yeah, that's not on there. It just, never mind, and then he just climbs up onto the...
They go a little bit further in detail in this one.
So, next thing you know, it's he's like, hey. And then they pretty much go over to a magazine stand, and there's a mummy.
There is a mummy.
Mummy.
Which I thought was interesting. I'm like, God, could you have explained a little bit more what was on that paper?
What?
The mummy's holding a paper. Isn't he? I wrote that down.
I think might not. On the mummy's lap, there was an ancient, perfectly preserved newspaper on the mummy's lap, which crumbled to dust when the gunslinger attempted to look at it. Why, did you just want to know what was going on?
Yes, I want to know what was going on with that paper. I would be very interested to see what that newspaper said in this time, kind of when it was from.
That would have been really cool. I did note a difference between the two versions. Yours talks about the old people doing this, or the old people having a war.
Perfectly preserved newspaper. Yeah, it says, the mummy's face was like an old... triple F.
No. I think it's a little farther.
It might be gas. Oh, right here, yeah. Gas, the gunslinger. Because, it went flesh into the mummy's mouth, a gold tooth wrinkled there. Gas, the gunslinger murmured. The old people made a guess that would do this. Or so Vanny told us. The one who taught from books. Yes, he. I bet these old people fought wars with it. The boy said darkly, killed other people, old people with it. I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, see, that's the one thing it doesn't. It just says gas, the gunslinger murmured. They used to be able to make a gas that would do this. They fought wars with it, the boy said darkly. Yes. So, see, the reason why I wrote that down is because I want to say it comes back later. Like, later on. Not, I don't know.
Maybe, it's possible.
I will just keep that note in my head.
Not too much further along. I've got another little piece that I thought I just late.
Yeah, mine's not until Jake makes his stand, so.
I think that's where I'm at too.
Oh, okay.
Because the boys, which for me, we were here, it's here.
Oh, okay.
It's not really that far.
Yeah, mine is like two or three lines down, so.
Yeah, because, we better go on, he said, and started towards track 10, and the handcart again. But the boy stood rebelliously behind him. Not going. The gunslinger turned back, surprised. The boy's face was twisted and trembling. You won't get what you want until I'm dead. I'll take my chances by myself.
So finally, it's like he had this kind of thought before they did all this, before they went into the mountain. Roland's like, just go then. And Jake's like, I can't. I pretty much have to go with you. And now he's finally just going through this journey, and he's like, never mind. I'm good. As we get closer,
you're in the middle of a mountain. You can't do anything.
And the saddest thing is that he's just like, okay.
These next couple lines, just, yeah, the gunslinger nodded non-communicably, hating himself for what he was going to do. Okay, Jake, he said mildly. Long days and pleasant nights. He turns around, walked across to the stone piers, leaping easily down onto the handcart. You made a deal with someone, the boy screamed after him. I know you did. The gunslinger, not replying, carefully put the bow in front of the T-post, raising in the handfall, blah, blah, blah. The boy's fists were clenched, his features drawn in agony. How easily you bluff this young boy, the gunslinger told himself. Again and again, his wonderful intuition, his touch, has led him to this point, and again you have led him on past it. And how difficult could it be? After all, he has no friends but you. It's so sad.
In a sudden, simple thought, almost a vision, it came to him that all he had to do was give it over. Turn around, take the boy with him, make him the center of a new force. The tower did not have to be obtained in this humiliating, nose-rubbing way. Let it come after the boy had a growth of years, when the two of them could cast the man in black aside like a cheap wind-up toy. Surely, he thought cynically, surely. He knew with sudden coldness that going backward would mean death for both of them. Death or worse, entombment with the living dead behind them. Decay of all the faculties. With, perhaps, the guns of his father living long after both of them, kept in rotten splendor as totems not unlike the unforgotten gas pump. Show some guts, he told himself falsely. He reached for the handle and began to pump it.
The handcart moved away from these stone piers. But see, where you said the living dead, it says entombments with the slow mutants behind them.
Well, there you go.
Go ahead and use that word again, slow mutants, instead of the living dead.
They're pretty much living dead. And of course, the boy screamed, "Wait!" and began running on the diagonal toward where the handcar would emerge toward the darkness ahead. The gunslinger had an impulse to speed up, to leave the boy alone, yet at least with an uncertainty. Instead, he caught him as he leaped. The heart beneath the thin shirt thrummed and fluttered as Jake clung to him. It was like the beat of a chicken's heart. It was very close now.
They left out the chicken heart thing. It says clung to him. The end was very close.
Yeah, I wrote down chicken heart.
I was like, that's an interesting way to describe it. Like the beat of a chicken heart. Oh, Roland.
I know.
What you're doing to him.
You know what you're doing.
Oh, he knows, and that's the sad part. He knows what he's doing to Jake. God.
The next note I have is with when they get to the area where it's like you can see that the ground has pretty much given way under the railing.
Yeah, I think mine's almost there. I just had something about Jake stopping him at some point to tell him that he needs to watch out. Because the tracks that they're walking on are falling apart.
Oh, mine's before that then. Because
I'm not that far ahead.
What?
I mean, we were there. I'm just right there.
Oh.
There's just this piece.
Well, that's fossils.
Unless I'm reading this wrong.
I was about to say.
199. It says 199. Middle. Well, it's right here.
Oh, okay. Well, mine was, it's the description of where they're at now, and then telling him to stop for a minute, please. And maybe I'm past.
No. I think that is what it is. Because it says, stop, the boy said.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking of a different piece.
Well,
but no, I got what you're talking about there.
What he's doing is he's like, stop for a minute. And so then he just lets the cart kind of coast to a stop. We'll go through, the boy said. Is that what he wants? For us to drive the handcar out over that and fall down? The gunslinger knew it was not, but said, I don't know what he wants. We're close now. Can't we walk? See, that was the difference between mine, is that Roland just tells him we're gonna walk, and this one Jake actually asks, can we walk?
Well, it says stop, the boy said. Stop for a minute, please. Unquestioningly, the gunslinger let the handcar come to a stop.
I skipped that part.
See, you and you're skipping. You're killing me here. I can't keep up where you're at when you do stuff like this. Nothing. I thought that was interesting. A little thing. Bring. That's over here, though. The Simon Says.
That I don't remember if that was in this one.
Okay, it's a prize. Yeah, because right here it says, it almost went on me, he said softly without emotion. There's a hole. Step over it if you don't want to take a quick trip to the bottom. Simon Says take one giant step.
Yes, they completely added that in because there's no Simon Says game in this one.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's only this like little piece. It's not much. It's just a little. It's odd. They even brought it up. That was a game the gunslinger knew, as Mother says. Remember well from childhood games with Cuthbert, Jamie, and Elaine. But he said nothing, only stepped over. Go back, Jake said, unsmiling. You forgot to say, may I? Cry your pardon? But I think not. The cross-tie the boy had stepped on had given way almost entirely and flopped downward lazily, swinging on a rotten rivet. Upward, still upward. It was a nightmare walk, and so seemed to go on much longer than it did.
So yes, pretty much they're crossing this. The ground has come up from under the railings. There's nothing beneath them. They're literally just kind of tracks going.
Just tracks, essentially over nothing.
So they're like trapeze artists right now, crossing this thing. And of course, Roland's doing what you're not supposed to do. He kind of is like glancing down a bit, imagining just falling, everything falling apart, everything just gone. And
it's interesting.
Screaming down.
This picture is here.
That doesn't make sense at all. But
I know it's like when you put this like towards the end.
I don't know.
I mean, this is like a hint towards like I don't know. It's interesting. Why?
Jake seems pretty cool about being a trapeze artist.
Yeah, he's not really bothered by it.
3 ties out here, the boy said coolly. I'm going to jump. Here. And I know that's
Geronimo!
different in yours. Yeah, I know that was different in yours. But the next line kind of just hurt. Because it's like, are you over? The gunslinger asked. Yes, the boy said remotely.
Yar.
But it's very rotten. I don't think it will hold you. Me. But not you. Go back now and leave me alone. His voice was hysterical, cold but hysterical. The gunslinger stepped over the brake. One large step did it. The boy was shuddering helplessly. Go back. I don't want you to kill me. For Christ's sake, walk, the gunslinger said roughly. It's going to fall down. The boy walked drunkenly now, his hands held out shudderingly before him, fingers splayed. They went up.
Yeah, it's a little different, this book.
Yeah.
Definitely a little bigger. It says, "Yar," the boy said, "but it's very rotten. Like the ideas of certain people, maybe. I don't think you can hold any further than where you are now. Me, but not you. Go back now. Leave me alone." His voice was cold. There was a beating of the heart. Jumped back behind the cart and Roland caught him. Gunslinger stepped over the brake. One large step did it. One giant step. "Mother, may I?" "Yes, you may." The boy was shuddered helplessly. "Go back. I don't want you to kill me." I have to switch over this little thing. "For the love of man Jesus, walk."
Sorry.
The gunslinger said roughly. "Is going to fall down for sure if we stand here palavering."
There's those words.
And then it goes to the boy walked drunkenly now.
Yeah. So, then we have the inevitable.
Yeah, finally confrontation, which is the very bottom of this page for me.
Yes, mine was not until pretty much they finally see the sun. They're heading towards it. They're like getting hope, everything, and then suddenly just blackness appears in front of the light.
Hole.
Yes.
He looked up, startled, peering like a mole from its hole, and saw a silhouette filling the light, eating it up, allowing only chunks of mocking blue around the outline of shoulders and the fork of crotched. "Hello, boys!"
Oh, God.
The man in black voice echoed to them, amplified in the natural throat of stone. The sarcasm of his good cheer taking on mighty overtones. Blindly, the gunslinger sought the jawbone, but it was gone, lost somewhere, used up. Yeah, ripped.
He laughed above them, and the sound crashed around them, reverberating like surf in a filling cave. The boy screamed and tottered, a windmill again, arms gyrating through the scant air, metal ripped. And thus we have,
metal ripped.
Yeah. Hell breaking
And slowed
loose.
beneath them. The rails canted through a slow, dreamy twisting. The boy plunged, and one hand flew up like a goal in the darkness. Up, and then he hung over the pit. He dangled there, the dark eyes staring up at the gunslinger, and finally, in the final blind lost knowledge. "Help me. Booming, racketing, no more games. Come now, gunslinger, or catch me never."
All the chips on the table, every card up but one. The boy dangled a living tarot card.
Mm-hmm.
That was my next note. The Hanged Man.
Yep.
The Phoenician sailor, innocent, lost, and barely above the wave of the Stygian sea. Wait then. Wait a while. See, I remember this being slightly different.
This is, wait a while. Do I go? His voice is so loud, he makes it hard to think. Help me, Roland. The trestle had begun to twist further, screaming, pulling loose from itself, giving. "Then shall I leave you?" No, you shall not." The gunslinger's life carried him in a sudden leap, breaking the paralysis that had held him. He took a true giant step above the dangling boy and landed in a skidding, plunging rush towards the light that offered the tower frozen on his mind's eye in the black, still life. Into sudden silence, the silhouette was gone. Even the beat of his heart was gone. As the trestle settled further, beginning his final slow dance to the depths, tearing loose, his hand finding the rock's lightened lip of domination behind him in dreadful silence. The boy spoke from far beneath him.
Go then. There are other worlds than these.
Then the trestle tore away, the whole weight of it. And as the gunslinger pulled himself through the light and the breeze of the rotating new car, he twisted his head back for a moment, in the agony striving to be Janus, but there was nothing, only plummeting silence, for the boy made no cry as he fell.
So that is the line of all lines. Another one of those ones that carries on throughout forever. Go then, there are other worlds than these.
Which will tie very much into the next book.
But what I thought you might like that they took away from that one is, do I go? Okay, wait then, wait a while. Do I go? The voice so loud he makes it hard to think. The power to cloud men's minds. In italicized, meaning it's something in Roland's head, it says, don't make it bad, take a sad song and make it better. So once again, Hey Jude pops up.
Hey Jude! That darn song.
Yes.
It plagues these books.
So yes, Jake is now gone. He has followed the man in black out.
Yep, he definitely does follow the man in black out. The man in black pushes his head away with the backs of both hands, laughing. So he cries, not an end, but the end of the beginning, eh? You progress, Gunslinger, you progress. Oh, how I admire you. The Gunslinger drew with blinding speed and fired 12 times. The gun flashes dimmed and the sun itself... the Gunslinger dimmed the sun itself. And the pounding of the explosion slammed back from the rock-faced escarpments and behind them. Now, the man in black said, laughing. Oh, now. We make great magic together, you and I. You kill me no more than you kill yourself. He withdrew, walking backwards, facing the Gunslinger, grinning and beckoning. Come, mother. May I? Yes, you may. The Gunslinger followed him in the broken boots to the place of counseling.
And then they have a lovely picture of David. Just kind of hanging.
Yeah. I think at the Mother May I part's not in there.
No.
Yeah?
Mine is just so... now, the man in black said, laughing, oh, now, we make great magic together, you and I. You kill me no more than you kill yourself. And then he withdrew. Come. The Gunslinger followed him in broken boots to the place of counseling.
Yeah, they definitely added some little place there.
Yeah.
Playing with that game again. Which, that is the end of the chapter. That is God.
That is one of the hardest chapters in this entire book.
The next chapter will be The Gunslinger and the Man in Black. And it is 22 pages long.
Yes, it's very short, and we finally get the information that Roland has been trying to gather for this entire book.
Yes, we finally get there. Now, of course, I said at the beginning, this one shouldn't be too terribly long. It's not a long chapter. There's not a whole lot goes on. We're rolling. We're sitting at almost 2 hours at this point.
Yeah, but...
I actually think this is going to be the longest one yet.
I do think that, even though that's the case, this was the chapter of all chapters in the book. Yes, Roland has been trying to get information, so that last chapter is very important. But this is the one that was foreshadowed from the beginning of the book.
Yes, this is about Jake. This is about losing Jake. Again, essentially. We know he died once. He's back to this world. Now he's died again.
Yes.
The Man in Black, essentially, has killed him twice.
Yes, he has pushed him from his world, and now
caused him to fall from this world.
Yes, it's just...
Poor Jake.
And it's like, no, Roland could not have done anything about the first time because Jake just appeared in his world. But Roland could have done something this time and did not. He chose the tower. He chose the Man in Black.
He has to.
I know he has to.
He has to.
But
it's the most important thing to him.
So many times he was told, you should go back. He himself said, I should go back. Jake told him, we should go back. And yet each time he finds a reason why he has to go on.
The tower. The tower.
Fuck the tower.
It's the most important thing to him. Period. Hands down. And by the end of this book, it is to you. Or this series, it is to you as well.
That is the one thing, is that once... This book is a little bit difficult for people to get through just because of how it feels. But once you start the true adventure, you're obsessed with the tower. You have to know.
More than anything, I cannot wait to get started into the second book. I love the second book. It is so good and so different from this book. I mean, all the stuff he adds in this helps it feel like the same world.
Yes.
It still makes it feel a lot more connected than the old one did. But it's still very different from the rest of the books.
Yes.
It's still it's just a desert, a town, a mountain. And that's it. That's the whole thing. It's just one walk. We encounter a boy, we encounter the man in black. And it's just very simple.
This is a true, not an origin story.
Origin probably not their best word for that, but
in a sense of, it's the beginning
of a tale.
Yes,
it's not an origin story of Roland. We get some of that in here, but it is truly the beginning of a tale.
We know about the Gunslinger.
We do. We learned a lot about the Gunslinger.
And he became the Gunslinger.
We will learn a lot more in the time to come.
But
I believe that is it. We've got to go ahead and end it. We're rolling on almost 2 hours at this point. I think we've gone through quite a bit this time.
I think that this one needed it, though. I think Jake deserved it.
Jake deserved it.
Jake deserved to be alive with us. But yes, otherwise, I think that's it.
Still waiting for that next book. God, we're so
almost
close.
there.
We're so close.
So join us next time.
Join us next time for the conclusion of the first book. And then the time after will finally be in the book 2, which I cannot wait for. But other than that, we are done. You can reach me always at BGJ Gamer, reach Amanda at KZPup, reach the show at Beyond Our Focus on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. And always you can reach us also on podcast services if you just want to listen to this. There's not really a reason you have to watch our ugly mugs, but so you can listen to us in podcast form and throw us in the background and kind of listen if you want to.
Yeah. As always, like and subscribe, leave comments, just suggestions, anything that you can think of. All
the links and everything are in the description down below. But other than that, I think that is it. So until next time, long days and pleasant nights.